The little right?
Oh, yes, yep.
Six cars at a time. On Friday night, 3 hours. Okay, that's great.
We're gonna wait a few more minutes for you, Teresa, for other people to come.
Now that we're all vaccinated.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I'm glad I made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Teresa is our Minnesota State operating grant artistic evaluation. She's online tonight. So there you go. Speak loud so she can hear you. Be as professional as you normally are, Alan.
Yeah, right. Charlie Brown asshole.
I always thought you were supposed to project when you were on stage.
Well, especially if you keep your chins up too, so you're not looking at the floor. So even if they're not as loud as it could be.
And I've also been known to yell, hand!
All right, all right, all
I have to do
right.
that. It's so funny when you find somebody's pet.
You start calling them out.
I think you can start if Pauline comes, we'll just add her in. And there's a couple other people who thought they would join us online. So if anybody sees something, Matt can pop up and just admit them.
Okay.
I think Matt can see it.
I can see it.
And if anybody sees chat, otherwise I'll just sit up there and run the camera. So, you're good?
Sure.
Okay, welcome.
No. Never moderated.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, the audience knows they can like ask questions as well, right? Like we want that, so. Oh, make it hard. If we don't have an answer, we don't have an answer. Right? Like, I don't know.
Hey, I don't think we're the story here.
Are you guys given any other questions ahead of time? Okay.
I sent you an email, Jan.
I didn't want to say it, but.
We got them in an email.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's right. Just saying.
Well, I guess we'll just kind of start out. We'll go around one person after the other, just kind of introduce ourselves. First off, my name is Ben Watson, and I will be the moderator for this roundtable.
I'm Dan Barcia, and I've probably been here about 10 years, but I've been doing theater for about 45 years. I think it's my age, right?
I'm Matt Hegdahl. I teach at Ridgewater Community College, and I direct out there, and I do a variety of things, or have done a variety of things here at the Barn Theater over the last 7 years that I've been here.
I'm Alan Clark, and I have been involved with the barn for about 7 years, 7, 8 years, and yeah, I haven't been too many directing opportunities, but it's been fun.
All right. So we won't have any sort of like order. If you just kind of, if something comes to you, feel free to jump in if nobody else is really speaking at the moment. But so at the top of the list is yes, question.
Not a question for this is Naomi. I just got an email from Andrew Benson.
Yeah.
He said, thought there was a Zoom info for the directors tonight, but it's not letting me in.
Let's see anybody. Oh, and Teresa's having a hard time hearing. I don't see Andrew at all. I'm having a hard time getting linked, but she's having a hard time hearing.
He said, I thought I had the Zoom info for the directors tonight, but it's not letting me in.
Did you register?
He's typing.
Talk a little bit and see if Teresa thinks.
Check, testing. 1, 2. Can you hear me? Is that better, worse? I will keep talking, saying words and things, sounds that come out of your mouth.
So much better. So
Yeah, that's because you have a
I will
booming
send.
voice.
Get used to it yelling at customers through mask, cloud kitchen
Up here, 320-444-1825. But it must be the phone number.
Or was it the number for the Zoom call?
Well, are we recording this as well? This will be so fun to watch. It's recording, so you can watch it later.
Just like live theater.
No, this is just like teaching on Zoom.
You never know what's gonna happen.
All right, well, while we're waiting for them to get back, do you guys want to just share kind of your very first like theater experience or what you remember first being a part of theater? That's our starting question.
Well,
what are your origins?
Well, my origins are, those really amazing church plays where they hand the microphone down the line, and, blah, 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 right? Like that's standing up there and waving to my mom, not paying attention to anything that's going on. First foray into that.
Yeah, I think that probably is everybody's first foray into theater, and that's where they decide if they're going to keep going or not. I think my first actual beyond the church plays and that kind of stuff, or the small school plays, I think my first one was probably high school. I don't remember what show was the first one, but actually, yes, I do. It was The Music Man. Yep, that was my 7th grade. That was my first play that I was involved with. I was just an extra in the background to fill out the marching band, and I was hooked.
Yeah, mine similar experience to the church plays being the very first thing that I remember. Don't remember those super well, but then in 4th grade, I remember being a part of. They were out at the WEAC. They were Prairie Fire Theater plays.
Are you a part of Prairie Fire?
Yeah,
Wow.
that was, I think my 4th grade was like my first one. Yeah, I was the lead dodo bird in Alice in Wonderland for that one. And then it only went downhill from there. I was the lead dodo bird, then I was vagabond number 2 in Aladdin, and then river rat number 4 in Tom Sawyer.
But you got to play Aladdin because Aladdin got sick.
I did fill in. I was like the understudy for Aladdin, so. So the question, Jan, was what was your first theater experience, or what do you remember?
Oh my gosh, I have to look back that far. Well, probably the first theater experience that really got me hooked was in high school. I started out my freshman year helping out with costuming and so forth. And then finally, I made the show in my junior year. And from then on, I just did theater the whole time. And I think the first one I ever worked on was the Flower Drum Song musical.
I really had no idea what I was doing until I got to college, where I was pursuing a bachelor's in theater. And my first year, I realized I knew nothing because I was in a small town. So we did like one show a year, and they were not well-known, big name shows, anything like that. So yeah, realized I had a lot of learning to do when I was in college starting off, but I stuck it out.
So definitely a lot of our first experiences was, of course, us being on stage and being a part of the acting. So then the next question is, what eventually got you involved with the directing side of it? What kind of spurred you on to give that a try?
Jan, that's my answer.
I forced Alan.
She encouraged me to co-direct with her for a show, and that kind of spiraled into other things. But she was a good mentor and taught me a lot. So I appreciate that, and I appreciated the confidence that she had in me to be able to actually, put a little spin on directing. So.
Yeah, you started out with just one scene.
Yep.
Just did one scene, just then he finally knew he could do it. He could do it. And he really does have a very creative mind.
Thanks, Jan.
You're welcome, Alan. Oh,
It was kind of out of necessity for me. I got the job being the only faculty at Ridgewater. There's really no choice. Somebody has to direct the shows. Because otherwise, I think if it wasn't for that, I think I would still do some directing, but I don't think I'd be have done near as much as I have in the past 7 years.
that was the first time you directed?
Like actually really taking on a show and directing it by myself. Other than my for my senior project in college, I directed a play that I wrote, but I didn't want to direct it. I wanted somebody else to do it. So
I didn't know that either. I thought that's.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, my focus was really much more writing and like technical theater.
Mhm. Let's see, the first time I directed, oh, I go by shows. My whole life is by, well, what show did we do? I guess it was probably about 15 years ago. And I was an assistant director for a very established director in Florida. And he took me under his wing, and I just loved I love the creativity about seeing a story from the beginning and then giving life to it.
So up to this point, I've only really had 2 directing experiences. The first one was with Kitchen Witches here at the Barn Theater. And that one kind of came about just because of necessity. I was originally going to just kind of assistant direct with Brent, and then he had some health issues come up and he had to drop out of it. So I just kind of, then the board asked me if I would be willing to step into that role. And so I said, what the heck, why not? So that all kind of came fast and furious. And then my other one was I directed one of our children's shows here a few years ago with a good friend of mine. And that went very well. That was a very good experience.
That's interesting, children.
Yeah, no, that was a fun one.
Better you than me.
Yeah, they weren't so bad, no. But now getting into maybe some more questions that kind of help people auditioning and people who want to be in shows. What do we do to prepare for a show before holding auditions? Before we even get to the auditions, everything that happens beforehand.
In a perfect world, I like to read the script 3 times. In a perfect world, if I get once through and maybe like skim a second time and looking for specific things of like what I'm hoping for.
For sure, a minimum of 1.
Yes.
Would hope.
Yeah.
I mean, usually I've read it before I've decided to direct it, but then give it another, like sit down and actually give it a read and, put some thought into it.
Definitely. At least twice. You have to. And then you have to pull out something that's reasonable for cold readings, if that's how you do it. I have never done monologues. I just feel that the actors are more comfortable with the cold readings, and I don't do it in the theater. I don't do the auditions in the theater. I do it at a round table in the event center, and I just say, we're just going to have fun. Everybody's sitting at the table, and we just take turns reading and talking, and to put them at ease. Auditions are very harrowing.
Yes. Yes, they can be.
I'd rather direct than audition.
I don't know about that. Depends on the show.
That's
Yeah, because it could be a really fun show to be in.
But, and then there are shows that you don't even audition for, and they say, would you please play this part? Right? I started out as a stage manager for a show, then wound up being a stage manager.
I guess for me, like when I have held auditions, which hasn't been very often, and I've usually had Jan's input if we're co-directing, but yeah, just read the show a couple of times and I look over the characters and try to get a feel of what that character may be like and try to judge what kind of person I'm looking for to play that character, what I'm looking for in the audition to what I want them to, kind of bring out of themselves to fit that character, I guess.
A lot of times you have a preconceived idea
Right.
of what you're looking for, And somebody comes in and reads and you went, oh my God. It's
Absolutely,
nothing
yeah.
like what you thought.
Yep.
Or sometimes you get fortunate and you have Alan and Gabe come and audition for a show and you
Yeah.
just have them on stage and the chemistry is just working to where by the end of the audition, I think everybody knew like what was gonna happen. I don't think anybody doubted it. I think they would have been upset with me if I hadn't put them in the parts that they were in.
Well, that's just like with Mary Poppins. You know, the girl who played Mary Poppins walked in, nobody knew her from Adam. And what we did is we had like 4 finalists for Mary. And I had all of the directors, the vocal director, choreographer, the stage manager was in on it. And I said, 1, 2, 3, and 4, put your number down, everyone, boom, 4. She just was phenomenal. She just came in and blew everybody away, so.
Yep, and definitely getting together with your crew beforehand.
Definitely. Oh, yeah,
Running through with them and getting some ideas,
Production
thoughts and
meetings
stuff.
are big.
Yep.
production meetings are big.
Production meeting, definitely.
Especially with the rest of your crew. So there's not any misunderstanding of your vision and what you want. You know, you don't want a customer to go and costume a show and then you say, whoa, that's not what I want.
Mhm.
Yeah, because sometimes you might be stuck with that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's too late.
yeah, it's too late or you don't have the budget for anything different. Yeah.
All right, and then sticking with auditions, just kind of generally, what are you looking for at auditions? Like traits in people, or if you're really driving hard for that one specific character or something like that.
I look for chemistry between two characters.
Mhm.
Yeah, I pit people together and see which one has the best chemistry.
Right.
I also look for team players too. So
Yeah,
if somebody, I might pair somebody who's a pretty good actor with somebody who has not been doing so well on auditions that night, and just to see, do they work with each other? Do you maybe see improvement out of that other person because you put them with somebody, you know, that's a little more experienced? Or does that experienced person just ignore the other person in the scene? You know, it's not a good sign to me
No.
if they're not working with that other person, because you got to listen.
You know, and for me, also like a willingness to participate in things if you're doing like some improv-ish type things. And as long as people are willing to just get out there and give it like a try one time, whatever activity you're doing and everything, they could have really good chemistry with people, but if they're just kind of, whenever it's like up to them to make the choice to kind of jump in and stand out, and they don't ever take it, then that's kind of a
Yeah,
mark
live
against.
theater, you gotta have each other's backs.
Mhm.
You know, and improv is the perfect way to practice that.
If I've got, if I have a stage manager at auditions, I talk to them afterwards, especially if like there's been a lot of people and you have them out waiting in the halls, waiting to get called in. I want to know if people are being jerks, or, you know, if because stage managers sitting there and they're noticing stuff. So I will ask, hey, anybody that you think wouldn't be a good choice, somebody who just I probably shouldn't have.
Mhm.
I haven't really experienced that personally too much, but I've had other friends that direct that have told me, you know,
So
horror
I haven't
stories.
experienced that really either, that much.
No, but that's a good point. I think the chemistry is the main thing to look for when you're auditioning somebody and trying it with different people, you know.
It's
with
pretty bad if you
different-
have a love scene and there's no chemistry.
Right, that's not.
And that happens quite a bit still.
Well, and usually it's because of that weird age gap that you end up with in like community theater.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just awkward for everybody all around. We did Bowie, and I had Laurel hitting on Anton, and she would apologize. She's like, Anton, I'm so sorry, you're my son's age. And he's like, it's fine, it's fine. And it was so funny. She was so funny with it, but she's like, I'm so sorry, Anton.
Perfect example to me of the, somebody with less experience and somebody with more experience and how they interact is you and Carla Johnson in Mothers and Sons.
Well,
I mean, this girl had no experience per se, really. I think she did one other
I
show.
mean, she was on stage with, no, she done 2 other shows, because she did Kitchen Witches, but she had like one line. She was on stage like the whole time.
Yeah, she was on stage the whole
And
time.
then she had a pretty good sized part in Sex
Sex
Please.
Please were sixties.
Uh,
Finish that,
huh?
finish that title.
Sex Please were 60.
Yeah, but I mean, and this was an enormous role for her.
It was carrying a good chunk of the
It
show.
was,
Yeah.
and she was very nervous about it, but Matt kind of made her feel comfortable as well as Alan, with the director. She still didn't have a whole lot of confidence in herself, but you guys
No.
pulled her through that one.
Well, that's just, I mean, a lot of these shows, I just think you need to kind of have a natural way to deliver the lines and just be, you know, make it feel comfortable, make it not seem too awkward. I mean, it's always going to feel a little awkward because they're not your words. We have to try to find a way to make them your words and to make it believable to the audience. And she was phenomenal. She didn't get all the words right, which was fine, but like, I mean, the way she delivered it, the passion, you
I don't
know,
know if any of us got all the words
Oh,
right, except
no,
for
there
maybe
was-
Bud.
right? There's way too many words.
There's
in
a
that
lot
show.
of words in that play. A lot of
But
words.
it was a phenomenal cast and I'm very grateful for that. So,
I was happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, we've had some good times here.
Well. All right, next on the list, kind of a little bit tougher question, but what are expectations you have going into a show? And what do you usually, and then kind of a follow-up, what do you usually find to be the realities of your expectations?
All my expectations are Broadway.
That's what we strive
And
for
usually they wind up way down
Right.
back. Well, for instance, Mary Poppins, I had huge expectations for that. I had the show blocked. I read it 5 times. And
Weren't you
the
hoping to
reality-
fly people?
Huh?
Weren't you hoping to fly people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping to fly.
And I think I told you, I was like, I don't know if you're gonna be able to make that happen,
Yeah.
Jim.
Nobody flew.
Nobody flew. I mean, I even sent pictures to the rigging people, and they were honest. They said with the theater the way it is, there's no way you're gonna hide it. And that's when I said, you know what, if we can't do it right, we're not doing it. And that's what you have to be willing to adjust your expectations.
Right.
And that was a fun show to work on with Jan because I was doing lighting for it, and rather than having scenes shifting from one room of the house into another one, it just kind of all stayed. And she'd say, well, I know it's supposed to change. I'm like, I love this. It's keeping it moving. We're not complicating things. It's not changing the story in any way.
No, but that's the big thing. You can't, change, God forbid, you don't change the story on the
Right.
author. But, yeah, you have to, a director's vision is probably a lot grander than what it actually turns out to be,
Mhm.
but it always works out in the end.
Right. The big thing, I think, yeah, you can have your expectations, but you need to be willing to kind of throw all those expectations to the wind and work with what you have and
Mhm.
work with your team and, you know, re-envision it if you need to, do whatever you need to do to make the show as best you can. And it always, like you said, always works out in the end.
Yeah.
A couple weeks before opening, you're usually chewing your nails off and pulling your hair out and wondering how it's going to all come together, but it always does. It always does.
Yep, sometimes right on opening.
Right.
night.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I remember one show in particular when I was in Florida, I was doing a show, it was Flaming Idiots. And it was Tech Week, I think it was 2 days before opening, they still didn't know the entrances and exits, where they were going, it was cars. And I thought, I think this was one of the first times I've ever lost my temper. I banged my book down on the table and I'm like, figure it out, call me when you're ready. And I walked out.
I've had a director do that before. Walk out of rehearsal, say like, I can't help you till you know your lines. And then they just left. And you're just sitting there with your other partner, you're like, okay, I guess we better do this and make them proud.
They called me and they went in that night and they had cheat sheets backstage of where they're supposed to be and they figured it out. You know, I can only do so much.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, one thing I always kind of expect, and that's just from my tons of shows that I've done here at the barn, is I always expect there to be a lot of like bonding and stuff, like getting together and forming like a mini family within the show. and all that stuff, and that usually almost always happens. There's always,
Oh, almost
like, we always go out to eat afterwards and then have good times then, and then we get the whole thing done, and then tears are shedding afterwards, and yeah. But I always look forward to that, meeting new people and bringing them into the family and,
Absolutely.
you know, strengthening those other bonds.
There's been a couple of shows here that tears have been shed after, well, most of the time it's the younger kids. The tears are shed, but you're never gonna see them again. It's community theater, the next show is coming.
We're just not used to it, yeah.
Yeah, my expectations are, people are gonna show up, we're gonna do an audition, hopefully I'll figure out a cast, and then in like 6 weeks, we'll be performing a show, like. I have kind of went from having expectations to just kind of coming into it saying, well, let's see what happens. You know, just hoping that the numbers show up.
Well, that's different, isn't that's very interesting.
Well, because having shows like the number of shows I've tried to do at the college where I need so many men and all I have is women. So I'm like, okay, I need to switch a script. I have a bunch of women that audition. I need to find a play for them. So that's like, I've even stopped picking shows at the college. I'll just do open auditions and see what I get for numbers and then try to find something that fits what I have. It just really depends.
Well, see, I guess that's why here we're very fortunate. A lot of times it's the men, we don't have the men, but I think you have to go big and then scale back, you know?
Yeah, you absolutely have to be willing to scale back.
Next.
Yep.
Any audience questions? Anybody on Zoom have any questions at this point?
Is there anything in the chat? Auditioning or anything?
I don't see anything in the chat, but if anybody on Zoom wants to ask any questions, either through the hands up thing or throw it in the chat, I'll try to keep an eye on it and catch it. Or unmute and just yell at us. Make some noise.
I've got just a couple questions. Thinking about musicals, I don't know if you directed musicals, but where would you like to put the orchestra? Because it seems like the orchestra's always either they don't want them to be seen or they do want to see them. So I'm just curious on some of your.
Well, I can answer that one right away. I've seen many musicals where the poor orchestra, if you don't have a pit, they're squished into the side of the stage someplace. And it's very distracting. I find it as an audience member distracting. That's why when I did a musical, I had a platform and they were right there. And bless their hearts, every one of them wore either a scarf or a little hat or something to fit with the theme of the show. And the background, the skyline of London was there behind them. And they kind of they were right there, but they blended in. I mean, you were in the booth.
Yep.
Did you find they blended?
Yeah, no, I think it depends on the show, because some shows like you can make it work. Another one I'm thinking of, I did tech for Cabaret, and the orchestra was just kind of like this band that's part of it in the background. You know, it worked, like they're part of it. But there's other shows where I think you want them maybe a little more off to the side. It also just depends with what do you have for set pieces? What do you have available for space for them? That was a big struggle with Big Fish of trying to find where does the orchestra go?
But I think that wound up pretty good because it was almost like it was part of that circus scene.
Yeah.
You know, and it worked out. It really did work out. And actually, some of the actors used the pit and to incorporate into the show. I mean, Bill Wright, crawling out of the pit.
Yeah. Bill was playing hide and seek with the audience and popping up out of the pit.
Yep, or like with Music Man, and when they all do like standing bit, and then the actual orchestra stands up, and that's always fun too.
As an orchestra person, where would you rather be? That is something I don't think anybody has ever asked. The poor orchestra, where would you guys rather be?
Right, well, some of us like to be involved in it, so we could actually feel like we're incorporated, because I actually was in the Mary Poppins and I enjoyed wearing the hat, I liked that.
So you would like to be incorporated within the story.
Right, not that we're shoved off to the side and smashed in a little corner. It's kind of nice to be acknowledged or, you know.
Mhm.
Isn't that how we had that for Fiddler, where you over,
We were tucked back in.
yeah, that's,
I didn't see any of the show. I just had to listen to cues and hear things, but.
I've been to a theater, well, the Fargo Moorhead Theater, they have a separate room altogether for their pit. So, I mean, obviously you have the space, that's kind of cool, and they use a monitor, so this, the.
Oh, so
cast-
they're
oh my
not in the
gosh,
theater at all.
No, they're in a separate room, like across the hall, and they have a monitor, so they see what's,
huh,
you know, see when the pit's getting ready to direct, and then the pit can hear.
If you
And they
have
need to
a
go.
pit, an actual pit is usually a monitor too.
Right.
yeah, summer theater I work at, the orchestra is completely hidden and the conductor is actually standing probably about 6 feet off the ground on this pedestal, so his head's like sticking out and he's just conducting. And the orchestra's all below him there.
Yeah, yeah, when I worked at the Performing Arts Center in Pennsylvania, there was a pit, and there was a monitor right by the orchestra director, and he was doing it that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, nobody ever, the only person that ever saw the pit was when we did Wizard of Oz, the witch. She came up there for the pit. There you go.
So you said you had more questions?
Well, that was good. Thanks. I think that's good
Okay,
for now.
That was one.
don't be shy. Alrighty, how do we juggle running rehearsals and working with the teams, the design team, the music team, the choreography teams?
That's choreographed.
Sometimes not very well. Like honestly, sometimes not very well. I mean, it just depends. I've had situations where I'm getting pulled away because this feels like it needs more attention and they're doing okay, so. But, you know, realize you're not giving them the kind of attention that they deserve.
Coordinating everything, like costumes and, first of all, as a director, you need to give your people your vision of what you want. Pictures, like for the costumer, you give them pictures of the type thing you're thinking of. Choreography, I usually don't get involved in because I have 2 left feet.
Yep, yeah, I don't know anything about dance, so no.
Yeah, I have 2 left feet. I rely on my stage manager a lot because actually, if there's issues and problems, they're supposed to go to the stage manager, and then after rehearsal, we can meet and then rectify those problems. A lot of times, people don't do that. You get people after rehearsals, you're here for another hour answering questions.
Mhm. But that's also, I think, a good point is being open, so people do come and ask you questions, because if they don't feel like they can, or if you don't, at least have it set up, so, hey, talk to the stage manager, this is who you email.
You gotta
You know,
be approachable.
Yeah, you have to be approachable, so, because, yeah, you might have somebody struggling with something and you wouldn't know.
I have my sorry jar. You know that, right?
Mhm.
My sorry jar?
Yeah.
Did I have that when I directed you?
I have not been introduced to this.
Oh,
no.
okay. Look, actors have a very bad habit during rehearsals. If they mess up, sorry. That's what rehearsals are for.
Mhm.
That's why you're rehearsing. And I was like, you put $1 in that sorry jar every time you say I'm sorry, because this is not the place where I'm sorry. And then we go out and party with it later.
Yeah, that buys the drinks.
Oh.
You have to have those production meetings too, like we talked about earlier, making sure you're keeping communication open with your other directors that you're involved with. So we know what's going on, so we know what needs work, what doesn't need work. And
I
like,
think the most difficult is costuming,
I think so too,
Yeah.
probably.
because they're pulling people for costuming as you're trying to work a scene, and all of a sudden it's like, well, where's this one? Oh, they're downstairs.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's
that's-
almost never just like a separate night for costumes. It's always usually like during a music
During-
rehearsal or something, and people are getting pulled, and you're like, oh, where'd they go? Oh, they're off doing costumes.
No.
Yeah,
That's the most difficult.
I think the hardest thing for me is trying to figure out how to schedule a musical. Like scheduling rehearsals and having all that stuff fit in, and also like what are the deadlines? So I need this stuff built by this time.
Mhm.
Because I'm not musically inclined, I can't dance, so, I don't know how long some of this stuff takes for other people.
Right.
So I'm like, well, for me, I'd need 3 months,
And as far as tech people, oh, those tech people.
We are frustrating, yes, we are. I'm my own out of the college, and
Yeah,
I really don't like myself
Usually
sometimes.
with tech people, I come in on a Sunday, and meet with them, and we go scene to scene, what we're looking for. And then they set the lights and the sound and all that, and then as we are going through tech week, they refine it.
Yeah.
They usually do not do it as well, sometimes.
Sometimes,
We have ladders up here.
I've been working on lights while people are on stage.
Sometimes you have to though, almost.
Yeah.
Really, to
Yeah,
make sure you're getting the right spot, make sure everything's lit in the right area. You sometimes have to have that, and that's okay.
And I'm fine with it because it makes the actors focus more and be like, hey, it's a distraction, but get used to it because you're gonna have a live audience.
Right.
You might have somebody fall over in the middle of a performance, and how are you gonna handle this?
You can have a kid screaming, people opening up their wrappers,
Somebody snoring front center,
cell phones ringing.
cell phones, yes.
or little
Yeah.
kids in the show not behaving, doing the, what do you call it?
Flossing?
Floss
Oh,
on
yeah.
stage.
When did that happen?
That was the best Christmas pageant
Yep.
ever.
Oh,
This
gosh.
little kid, oh gosh, he was the weirdest little angel, but he gets out here and he's supposed to stand there and sing, he doesn't floss.
Oh.
I'm like, Bodie, no. No flossing.
We do prefer to keep the memes off stage.
Well, the best part of that is it was supposed to be, it's a church Christmas program, and that's the stuff that happens during a church Christmas
Exactly, so,
program.
you know, it was kind of like,
So people maybe thought, oh, well, they planned that.
That
was really
kid's a
good.
great actor.
I had him when he came over here and all the little angels are here, I had him run back and grab onto that pole.
Mhm.
And then the dad came and got him, it was part of the show, and his mother hadn't seen him. And his mother's go, Billy, Billy.
And the kids acting is too good.
That's good.
We have a question online. They want to know how do you pick a monologue or a song for a musical or an audition? And what do you as directors want them to pick? The same song from the musical or something different? Or how do you choose a monologue to show you what their
Ooh.
ability is?
You want to take that one, Alan?
Well, I guess any auditions that I've had, I haven't done a musical yet, and I don't plan on because that's too much.
Yeah.
But like as far as auditions go, a lot of, like myself included, a lot of us have stuff already at the audition for people to come and use to audition with, like actual little scenes or snippets from the show. But if, I guess it kind of depends on the tone of the show. If you come with something prepared, it would be, if it's a comedy, come with something comedic prepared, at least in my opinion. So we can see those kind of chops and yeah, that.
And to add on, I think contrasting stuff too. So if you got like a comedic song, so if you have to have something prepared, a song and a monologue, have something that's comedic, something that's more dramatic, just to
Right.
show your range.
Yep, that's good.
I'm trying to think if I would want people to do stuff from the show or if I'd want them to pick from a different show. I don't know what I would prefer.
I tell them not from the show.
Because they're gonna be working with a vocal director, and so,
They've got it down one way,
right.
and
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard to change them.
Yeah, and I've had both ways. Like when I've gone to auditions, I've had some say prepare a song and have something prepared, and then I've also been there, well, don't come prepared, so you'll sing something from the show at the audition. So just it really depends on the
I would
director.
usually tell them, come with 2 pieces, 16 bars of each, one upbeat and one ballad. This way you can see their strengths, weaknesses, so forth. I have never, like I said, with monologues, never had them do monologues. Well, I always like the reading together to see the chemistry.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll do monologues, especially if I'm looking for like stronger actors for the show. Because then I can give that individual a direction. I'll stop them and say, all right, I want you to think about this going forward, and then have them, do it again, just to see how they take direction.
Right.
I've also had people do one line and had them do it different ways. Right?
Yep.
Right? Do it like you're angry.
Right. Or there's also, it's the same director that I think we're talking about, but it's also like, okay, you're at like a 3, I need you at like a 7. But I want you to keep that intensity or keep that, whatever.
Just
It's
don't
just,
get louder, just get
Right.
more, yeah.
right. It's just, so it's like, okay, I will try to turn it up 4 notches here. I'm not sure. But, so yeah, each director is different, really.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
That's a good
whatever you
question.
do choose, make sure that you're comfortable with it. Whether the
Yeah.
language in it or just knowing it backwards and forwards,
Yeah.
just make sure to be comfortable with it so that you can really showcase like what you can bring to the table.
Yeah, especially if it needs to be prepared, you know that thing. You make sure you know
Well,
that.
and another thing I tell people when they're auditioning, this is not the stage, the final stage version. Just read it. Just
Mhm.
read it with the other person. No moving around and blocking and picking up props. And I don't want to see that.
Mhm.
I don't want to see that yet. I want to just hear what you sound like with other people and if there's a connection.
Yep.
Does it matter if the song choice you choose is from another, like a production, or just a song that you feel comfortable singing? Like, do I pick something off the radio, or does it have to be like a theater piece?
I would say either. I mean, again, it's going to depend on each director, like what they specifically want you to, if they want something prepared or not. But for me personally, I don't think it would matter either way. If it was, as long as you're comfortable and it can show some emotion and show some
Range.
depth and range, then I think either a popular song on the radio or something from a Broadway show is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could even be a similar show, just, try to stay away from a song from the show you're auditioning for.
Right. Yeah, that's a good
Thank
question.
you. Thank you.
Any other questions at the moment?
Consider using an understudy for a musical. Gives a hoarse voice.
You were in the show, what happened?
Yes, for 9 to 5, we postponed opening nights when that happened. Yeah, and didn't have any sort of backup plan, so that's what we had to roll with.
I wish we could do understudies, I really do, but it's community theater and you don't get the amount of people needed to do that. I mean, on Broadway or, the traveling troops, they have swings that know every part.
Yep.
And we just don't have the means to do that. I don't even know if actors would go for that. Not knowing if they're ever going to be able to play that part, if they would take the time to learn all of that.
Well, I was at a directing workshop a couple of years ago, and this lady was talking about how she uses understudies when she can get them. And so the understudy is the one that has the script. Your person, that's your main actor, they never ever have that script in their hand on stage. So the understudies are following the actors around and speaking the words to the actors, but trying to keep the scene moving. So that way you're learning by listening and then reciting. And then the understudy is learning the blocking and learning the scenes as well. Because one of the issues I've had anytime I've had somebody who was like an understudy, if I would have needed to utilize them, I don't think I would have been able to, because I don't think they learned the part. So, I mean, I know the one time I was an understudy, I did not learn that part. So that would not have been very good.
They may have learned the actual dialogue, but the blocking, there's so much involved.
Right.
And then you have to have double costuming if they're not the same
Right.
frame. I think that's tough in community theater with our budget.
Yeah, the only time the barn really does it is if we have children as like leads
Mhm.
and things like that. Like I know we've done it for Annie,
Poppins.
yep, and for
We
Poppins.
had A and B.
And we might have done it for Sound of Music too.
We did it for
I-
Big Fish too. We had two,
Yes, you had
two of
two
the
big
little,
fish.
yeah,
Only because too, like, well, Big Fish, that was a big part
Right.
for that kid. It's a lot for these kids every single night, 12 performances.
mhm,
You know, they're still in school, it's late nights. So that's why a lot of us will cast double and split the roles, so they do get a chance. It's not if they get sick. We'll have one kid knocking another kid out to get on stage.
So that brings a question to my mind. What's the perfect number of shows that you would think would be a great number? Because I know I've been in one where we had 2 weeks, I've been in one where we had 3 weeks. Just curious on your comments on that.
Yeah, I think that depends on the shows.
Oh,
The computer doesn't always hear.
okay, so you were asking about like, so the run, like how long of a run to do? So do a 2 weekend run or a 3 weekend run?
Right, how many numbers of the show?
Yeah,
I think the musicals always sell. They always
Right.
sell. So, you know, that's usually 3 weeks, and I think that's just, they probably, some of them could have gone 4 weeks,
right.
you know, but who's, you know, how you gonna, you're not gonna know that until you get your first weekend and it sells out. Then you have to try to scramble all your actors together and your orchestra and sell more tickets, and who knows if it's gonna sell. So you have to, you really do have to put the limit and stick to it.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult with community theater because everybody has other obligations. Everybody involved in the show has other obligations. So if all of a sudden you have a hit on your hands and you want to maybe try to extend it another week or so, then it's like, well, now you need to coordinate with everybody involved to be like, okay, is everybody available to do it another 3-4 days, you know, and that isn't always the case either, but you know, we don't have contracts like they do in the fancy theaters.
The musicals are easier. You do 12, you know, to me, that's easier to project what you need to do. It's the regular shows, the straight shows, it's hard.
yeah, you don't know if people are gonna love it or if
Right.
word of
Especially
mouth
the-
is, yeah.
Especially the ones with lower name recognition.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it gets word of mouth because it's so funny or whatever.
Sex Free for 60.
Exactly, like that's the one I was thinking of where,
People didn't want to go to it because, oh, the title, Sex Free for 60.
But at the same time, it was also kind of a buzzword. It got people
right,
talking.
it got people's attention. It's like, oh,
Yeah, and it was, we could have done another weekend.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't think there is ever a perfect answer for how long you want a show to go on. It just really depends on the reaction of the audience and what you're getting.
I know we did that with Boeing at the Little Theater. We ended up extending the run another weekend, and that was a struggle because one of the actors, he's had to do some juggling around it to make sure he could be available for it.
Yeah.
And we were taking a risk because it's like, well, we had 2 good weekends, but as a third one, and I think it was worth it. But also one of the things is if you extend it, I think the companies usually charge you more for royalties because you're doing it, you know, not so far in advance.
Right, yeah, that's the other thing you have to
Oh, that
consider.
I don't know. I thought it was just like $100 per show, period.
I'm pretty sure for Boeing, we had to pay a little extra because it was like, because if it would have been like a 2-week notice, I think it would have been
Mhm.
their regular
That's not our
rate,
job.
but.
That's the production manager's job.
I know for me, when I've acted in shows, there's been some shows where it could go like for a musical, the full 3 weeks, and I'm like raring to go, like, let's keep going, do this, take this on the road, whatever. There's always kind of joke about that. And then there's other ones where we hit the 2 weeks and it's like, I am exhausted. I do not want to do this anymore. And that was the shorter version.
Yep,
So yeah, it really can go either way.
And I think your theater knows enough what their clientele and their patrons want. And that's how they set how many shows you do.
Alrighty, getting down to the end here. So as directors, how do we help actors figure out their character or any tips on how to discover or find the character.
Yeah, you get up and you walk out of a rehearsal and they'll figure it out. No.
I have a lot of my actors, not all the time, because sometimes we have seasoned actors and they have their own little ways of figuring out the character, but I will have them keep a log. Their day to day. I mean, they don't have to carry the book around with them. Like if something happened when you went to the grocery store, how would your character react to that? And it kind of just helps them find who that character is.
I've given people that like tip for like researching a role, like go and watch people in public and just think how would my character have, dealt with. Yeah.
Dealt with that. And also the research a little bit or even make up, it doesn't have to be factual, make up a backstory of the character. What happened? Why are they this way? What happened in their life that makes them who they are today?
I worked with a director that had us go through the script and look for every time our character was mentioned to see, to give us more insight into what that person was like, or what they, if it mentioned something about their personality or what they did for a living or something like that, to look to see those kind of things. And it helps you look at the script a little bit more too, to see what's going on. But I've also worked with people that are just, I wouldn't want to say just extras, but like extras in the background that even come up with complete backstories for their characters that are, they may not even have any lines, but they still have a full backstory.
I think the backstories are important.
Absolutely.
It makes the character who they are and why they're like that way.
Yeah, I'll stop scenes if I feel like they're just kind of saying the words. I'll stop a scene and I'll just start asking questions. And sometimes I might not even know exactly where I'm going. I'm just trying to make them think, just asking them questions. Because I want my actors to think this stuff through, think about it.
You can tell an actor to do something, stand here, do this, do that, but if they're not feeling it,
Right.
it's not going to work.
Well, and if it's something where they're struggling with like, they've got the character figured out, but there's like a scene where they're just having a hard time figuring it out, I will oftentimes have them do a scene in a way that there's no way they would ever perform this live. It's so wrong. Everything about it is so wrong. The way they move, the way they talk, and just to kind of wash it away. And so you can kind of approach it from a different angle. And even sometimes doing that, like, look, I don't actually want you to do this, but we're just going to, I'm like, actually, I like this one part in here where you did that, it's like you find things and just kind of helps it make sense.
Have you ever had a actor say a different line, different ways?
Like,
emphasizing different words, say the line 3 different ways.
oh yeah. Yep.
I think I had to do that.
Oh, probably. Most definitely, yeah. No,
Ben didn't like me much.
Well, and see, in my approach, all kind of depends on each individual actor too. Because like, some people you can be a little, I don't want to say harder on, but you can ask them harder questions and kind of push them a little bit more, try to frustrate them, and it benefits them. And other people, it does not benefit them.
Absolutely.
I threatened to nail somebody's foot to the floor because they were a traveler.
I've said that plenty of times. I can go grab a drill and we can make sure your feet don't move.
Stay there.
But I think it's also important, if you are cast in a role too, don't be afraid to, well, at least if I'm the director, I guess I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I also know these directors up here, so I think they would be okay with it too, but don't be afraid to come to the director with suggestions either. If you feel like your character would maybe not do something this way, would maybe do it a different way, don't be afraid to, share those ideas.
Yeah, suggestions about your character,
Yeah.
not other people's
Not other
characters,
people's
unless that
characters.
conversation's opened up to
Right.
talk
That is
about.
something that any director, I think, will cringe at.
Yeah.
Don't direct other actors.
Right.
An
Yeah,
actor
focus
is
on
an
yourself.
actor, not a director.
The first show I did out here at intermission, I had to kick people out of the green room that weren't even involved in the show because they were giving people acting notes. And I'm like, get out of here. It's intermission, go, shoot.
You have to get also it might sound mean when I say, you know, I yelled at Ben, you know, ham, or I'm gonna nail your foot to the floor, but you say it in a way that you're not mean, you're mean. You know, afterwards, it's, you know, oh, remember, she said she was gonna nail my foot to the floor.
Yeah, you're gonna remember that
You're gonna
though.
remember it.
Jan threatened to nail my feet to the floor. Yeah, I'm not gonna forget her saying that.
You have to build a rapport with your actors, you really do.
And to be clear, Jan has never nailed anybody's feet to the floor.
Well, not here in Minnesota.
Right, not here. We can't speak for Florida or Jersey or
New York,
Pennsylvania.
maybe. Gosh, I've been a lot of places, haven't I?
You said it, not me.
All right,
This, I don't know who that is over there, this guy, this young man.
Huh?
This young man.
Oh, this is Jacob. I thought you'd look at it. Oh, wait, do you have? We already. Okay, we already did that one.
Jacob, what were you agreeing with there? You were shaking your head.
Well, I was just laughing at that, making sure, wait, because I don't really know you, to be honest, so I was like, did you do that?
I may be old and small, but I'm mean.
All right, well, this next one's kind of a two-parter again. What do you find the most enjoyable about directing, and what's kind of the hardest parts about directing?
Oh, I absolutely love the feeling on opening night when you took this script of words and brought it to life. You really, you not obviously not alone. Your actors, everybody just worked together to produce and give birth basically to this story. I just love that. And it's very emotional for me on opening night when I see this on stage. And I'm like, I cannot believe that we did this. We really did this. It's a very, very emotional thing.
Yep, I had something written down, yeah, very, very similar to that. There's always like that moment that hits you, at least the shows that I directed, where you realize you've done all that you can. There's really nothing else that you can do, and it is now in the hands of everybody else but you.
It's like you're sending your kid off to school.
It's a very, very
There you go.
liberating and prideful feeling.
You feel like you're sending your kids off. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when it's clear to everybody that, my hands are washed of this. I'm not giving you any more direction. That's probably one of my favorite parts. But honestly, my answer to that is like, I like the rehearsal process, but there's also times like that's my least favorite also is the rehearsal process. Because you have times where everything's working together, everybody is jiving and you know, it's like, okay, this is awesome. It's like a well-oiled machine. And then 2 days later, you're like, what happened to this unity? And why are we not like connecting and communicating? And
I think but the worst part for me is auditions, believe it or not. Because after you've made that decision, you second guess yourself, you're wondering, did I make the right decision? Are these people going to be able to pull off this part? You know, because as a director, you think, did I make the right decision?
Yeah, casting is not easy.
Casting is tough.
Especially when you have like several people that could work.
Alan, how about you?
I think for me, there's a couple of things I find to be the best part, which is like Jan said, the opening night thing and just seeing it come to fruition and everything, kind of blossom right there. The other part I enjoy, and this is something that you brought up earlier too, Ben, was just through the auditions, through the rehearsals, all that stuff, you start adding more to your theater family, and it really does become a family. Each show becomes a little separate family, and then you add to your overall theater family, and it just keeps growing. And that's the best part to me about the community theater is adding to that. The worst part of directing is the freaking conflicts.
You're talking about scheduling conflicts? Yes. Scheduling.
Keep getting them handed to you every day, like, oh, well, I won't be here tomorrow because of this. Well, you should have told me a while ago.
Where was this at the beginning?
Right, exactly. So that part is.
Gosh, my mind kind of blanked that out.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
I think we just tend to forget about it after, you got a schedule done and then it's just chaos. And it's
Right.
like, well, we had planned to do this, but
That goes back to your question about your expectations.
Yeah.
Your expectations are, give me your conflicts at casting.
And that's
At
it.
read-through, and that's it.
Yep.
Never happens.
Yeah.
Never.
Gotta be flexible, be ready to work on different parts. If everybody is not there, it's like, well, I guess we're gonna be doing these scenes tonight then.
Well, how many times as assistant director, you were playing a woman's part? You
Right.
stepped in.
Yep.
I haven't done that as a director. I'm like, well, I guess I'll read this part.
Oh, yeah, 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 we fill in.
Yep, least favorite part for me is the taxes you gotta figure out afterwards.
The taxes?
Yeah, in all honesty, it's the paperwork you gotta fill out afterwards. It's like, what is this, an independent thing? Was I working for the barn? Was I just by myself? And that part always got me confused.
Oh, I'm looking at it, saying taxes?
Yeah, we gotta fill out the taxes afterwards. All right, we got just a couple minutes here left. I'm assuming we had an hour. Yep, we're almost at the end here, so we'll just go one by one. What's something you haven't had a chance to direct but would love to? What's kind of your dream show that you would like to direct still? Jan, you've probably already done yours.
I did.
Yeah.
I've done mine. Yeah, I've always wanted to direct Mary Poppins. That was a dream come true for me. It really was. It was harrowing. It really was. Trying to manipulate all these people and orchestra and scenery and lighting. But when it all came together, it was just a beautiful show. In fact, I sat every night up there. I always come to the shows. Some directors are out of here after they open, but I always come because I want to support my crew and cast. And I sat up there with the musical director, the vocal director. Every night he cried. Every night he cried. So, it's not just me. It's very heartwarming to see the emotion in the crew also. But yeah, that Mary Poppins was my show. I think I would do either Wizard of Oz or Cinderella too.
Mine would have to be True West, and what's a little weird about this is this is a play that I've been in the works with another friend of mine that directs, that we both want to be in it and play the brothers. We want Jan to be our mother in the play, and then we just need a sleazy agent, and we've got a cast. But I'd love to actually direct that play as well, cast it and direct it. But
Wasn't there on play reading committees list one year?
oh yeah,
It's been on a few years,
I
yeah.
thought so.
I've suggested it.
Okay.
Oof, I honestly, I can't even think of one that I want to really badly direct. I feel still really fresh to the directing situation, so I don't know. I don't feel like there's one that really speaks to me that I want to really badly put my stamp on or anything, but so that's a really bad answer, but it's true.
Block of that one.
Yep. For me, it would have to be 12 Angry Men.
Ooh,
I've just absolutely fell in love with that show. I've seen the movie, I've seen it on stage a bunch of times, and it's just so you just throw it at the table of people. That's the whole scene, no scene changes, nothing. It's all super just intense and in there in the moment. Everybody's there, just raw
you just gotta get
emotions.
the
and-
men.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I'd be willing to, of course, do like 12 Angry Jurors if we wanted to have like some.
Well, that's a question we should answer. To what extent we can change things. You have to be real careful with that.
Yeah.
12 angry people.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, any other final questions for us up here? From our audience or from our guests on the internet?
When do you see the live shows coming back? I don't know if that's a little off topic, but.
Oh,
I'm thinking maybe this summer.
Yeah, the question was, when do we see our shows coming back here at the barn?
Right now, the board is planning for August, and we
Okay.
might try and do something sooner, but
Okay.
August is the first.
Okay, August.
yep. End of summer, hopefully. Woo-hoo.
That's a touchy subject, I guess, because it's going to be really hard to know if people are ready to come back. They're going to have to just try and see what they get.
Yeah, there's so many variables that are gonna go into it, but
I'm
we're not
sorry?
gonna, there's so many variables that are gonna go into, we just have to try it and see how it goes.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think-
People have been vaccinated by that time too, so
Yeah,
that's a good thing, so.
Yeah, that might give people more confidence. Hopefully it would.
but I think we're very lucky in our community that we have really good community support. I mean, honestly, for our theater overall, I think, so I think that's a blessing. I think our strong patrons are ready for us to come back and are ready to come back and support us too, so.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So I would just say probably the summer.
Yeah,
Kind
end of summer.
We did try radio shows, we tried, we did the Gift of the Magi
Magi.
for Christmas on Zoom. There's just something a little bit,
It wasn't on Zoom.
it was
It was-
live.
No, it wasn't live, but it was,
It was
it was recorded.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was more like a short film.
Okay, well, it's just not the same
No,
recording. Like, there's just nothing like the smell of the theater.
depends on the show.
Well, thank you all for joining us here this evening. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your support. Naomi, did you have any closing remarks or anything?
No, thanks so much for coming, and we're gonna try and do another version of it next week, so join in.
all right, did somebody just send a chat?
Let me look.
Thank you, see you next week, and thank you for having me, Teresa says. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Jake, you don't have no questions?
No, I'm kind of.
Just wanted to make sure Jan's not a sociopath.
Right.